Every narcissist knows there's something off in them. No matter how grandiose, no matter how subtle, they can feel that difference, that gap between who they pretend to be and who they really are. They might not understand it or be able to name it or even admit it, but they feel it. And they know if they call you a narcissist, you'll question yourself instead of them. Identical behaviors don't mean identical motives, and that's where most people get narcissism completely wrong. Two people can shut down, pull away, or seem to lack empathy. One's a narcissist and one's not. And if you can't tell the difference, it can cost you your job, your kids, your future, your sanity. I've spent the last 20 years studying self-worth and narcissistic dynamics, and I teach people how to protect themselves from manipulation. In this video, I'll walk you through the clearest indicators of who is and who is not the narcissist, especially when the surface behavior is identical. This is one of the biggest reasons people get confused. Narcissists and non-narcissists can both shut down, pull away, or seem cold. But the reason behind those behaviors is completely different. On one side of the coin, narcissists lack empathy. They don't feel for you, they don't consider you, and when they appear to care, it's performative. It's strategic. It gets them something like status or praise, compliance, or attention. Their empathy is always transactional. It's calculated to get them what they want, which is your time, attention, and energy. On the other side of the coin, people who are not narcissists often have plenty of empathy, sometimes too much. And when you've been the one who listens or fixes or keeps the peace or absorbs someone else's moods, you eventually become exhausted and overwhelmed. That overwhelm can look a lot like a lack of empathy. It can look a lot like you're shutting down. It can look like you don't care, even if you do. Not because you lack empathy, but because you've been carrying the emotional load in a relationship where the other person hasn't been carrying anything. I remember moments in my own life, times where I look cold or detached, and they've always happened in relationships where I've overextended, overaccommodated, or I've been walking on eggshells for too long. And when I finally hit that empty line, I didn't start fights, I just disappeared. Not because I was a narcissist, but because I had no resources left. And for me, that feeling is actually one of my warning signs. When I start to feel exhausted around someone, or they feel like a bottomless pit, or like nothing I ever do seems to make them feel satisfied or stable, that tells me that I'm overextending. It doesn't automatically mean they're a narcissist, but it does mean that my empathy is working overtime and I'm getting close to running out of capacity. So my overgiving creates that exhaustion, and that exhaustion is what makes me want to shut down. So here's the simple distinction. A narcissist shuts down because there's nothing more to extract, or because they want to punish you into behaving. But people like you and me, we shut down because there's nothing left to give, and we're trying to save ourselves from further harm. And that's the difference most people miss. The same behavior on the outside, two completely different motives on the inside. And this is exactly why a narcissist will call you the narcissist. When you shut down from exhaustion, they don't see empathy fatigue. They see a threat to their supply. Your distance gets interpreted as disrespect. Your silence feels like defiance. And instead of asking you why you're overwhelmed, they flip the script. Look how cold you are. You don't even care about me. You're the narcissist, right? So if that sounds familiar and you want to assess the level of risk you're dealing with, I put together a quick narcissist protection checklist, links in the description below. So they do this for one reason, to shift attention away from their own lack of empathy. If they can paint you as uncaring, they never have to look at the fact that they've been taking and giving nothing back. So here's how you know the accusation isn't valid. If your shutdown came from depletion, not domination, you're not the narcissist. A lot of people panic when they hear the word manipulation because they immediately think, well, I've been manipulative, so does that make me a narcissist? And this is where motive becomes everything. Two people can do something that looks manipulative on the surface, but the intention behind it is completely different. Narcissists manipulate to extract. Their tactics are deliberate and calculated. Gaslighting, guilt, charm, flattery, all of it has one goal: to advance themselves, maintain control, or secure power in the relationship dynamic. On the other side of this coin is self-preservation manipulation. This is what non-narcissists do, and it comes from a completely different place. It looks like agreeing when you don't actually agree, or softening your reactions, or laughing something off, or trying to smooth the tension in the room. It's not about gaining power, and it's not about taking anything from anyone. It's about avoiding conflict, avoiding escalation, or trying to protect yourself emotionally when someone else feels unpredictable or unsafe. When I was younger, I would shapeshift constantly. I adjusted who I was depending on what I thought someone else expected of me. Not because I wanted to control them, but because it felt safer to perform than to be myself. And this wasn't malicious, it wasn't even conscious. It was just the only strategy I knew to use at the time. And this is exactly why a narcissist will call you manipulative. When you finally stop accommodating them, or stop smoothing things over, or when you stop performing the version of yourself that they like best, they see that as a loss of control, and your self-preservation gets framed as deceit. Your boundaries get framed as betrayal, and suddenly they say you're the manipulative one. They do this because it protects their position. If they can paint your survival strategies as selfish or sneaky, they never have to acknowledge how much they've been taking from you. So here's how you know the accusation isn't valid. If your behavior was meant to keep the peace or to keep yourself safe, it's not narcissistic manipulation. You might manipulate to reduce danger, reduce conflict, or reduce emotional chaos. And for me, this is one of the earliest indicators that I'm dealing with an unhealthy dynamic. When I notice myself wanting to shapeshift more, or appease more, or over-explain more, that's my signal that the relationship itself isn't safe for me. My self-preservation strategies activate when someone else's demands start to feel unreasonable. And my biggest red flag is when it doesn't feel safe to be myself. So when I catch myself contorting or softening or changing who I am just to be accepted or to try to keep the peace, that tells me something's wrong. Even a small white lie or pretending more than usual is a sign that I'm falling back into old habits that aren't healthy for me. And this doesn't automatically mean that the other person is a narcissist. It means I am slipping into patterns that I developed in toxic relationships, and those patterns create the kind of manipulation that comes from fear, not dominance. And that's exactly why this distinction matters. When you're in a dynamic where you don't feel safe to be yourself, your behavior can start to look manipulative from the outside, even though the motive is self-preservation, not exploitation. Some of the biggest self-doubt shows up around the need for validation, approval, and attention. People worry that if they enjoy being appreciated or noticed, it must mean they're narcissistic. But again, the motives are completely different here. So for narcissists, validation is proof that they're special, either superior to others or uniquely victims. They need admiration to reinforce an inflated self-image, whether the image is I'm exceptionally wonderful or no one has ever suffered like I have. So for grandiose narcissists, attention is a ranking system. For covert narcissists, attention confirms the importance of their pain. In both cases, approval feeds the same core belief. I'm not like other people, and I'm above them in some way. For non-narcissists, the need for validation comes from a completely different place. It's not about being better than anyone else. It's about wanting to feel worthy of other people. So when you share an accomplishment, or when you hope someone notices your effort, or when you want a little appreciation, you're not trying to rise above people, you're just trying to connect with them. You're hoping that your value is just seen. So it might look similar on the outside, especially if you're insecure or unsure of yourself. It can sound overly grandiose, it can sound desperate or needy, and it can even sound like fishing for compliments. But the internal motive is completely different depending on who's doing it. People like you and me use validation to feel included, recognized, or valued. When we share something we're proud of, we're not trying to rise above anyone. We're just hoping someone will see us. When we talk about something hard that we've been through, we're not trying to compete in suffering. We're just hoping someone will care. Often, what might look like self-promotion or self-pity on the outside is just a quiet question on the inside. Do I matter to you? I can think of so many moments in my past where I hoped someone would notice me or appreciate what I did, not because I felt like I needed to be superior, but because I felt unsure of myself. I wanted a signal that I mattered to someone, or that I was part of things, or that I wasn't invisible. And for me, that's one of the signs today that I still check in with. When I start feeling the need to prove myself, sell myself, or earn my place with someone, that tells me the dynamic is affecting my sense of self-worth. It doesn't mean the other person is a narcissist, but it does mean that I'm slipping back into old patterns where I believed I had to perform to be valued. And this is exactly why a narcissist will call you attention-seeking or self-centered. When your validation needs stop reinforcing their image, when you look for connection anywhere outside of them, and when you stop praising them the way that you used to, they experience it as a threat. Your attempt to feel worthy becomes to them disloyalty. So they flip the script, and now you're the one who needs all the attention. So here's how you know the accusation isn't valid. Were you trying to prove you were above people or trying to prove that you were worthy of connection? Narcissists seek admiration to elevate themselves, and people like us seek validation to feel valued and seen. Thanks for watching. YouTube thinks you're going to like this video on screen right here. Yeah, that's the one. Click it to learn even more about spotting narcissists and protecting yourself against manipulation. I'll see you over there. Okay, bye.